Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Havens, and I'm the event manager here at An Unlikely Story. I'm going to start with sharing a few technical details about Crowdcast, which does work best when you are using Google Chrome as your browser. If you're having difficulties, if you switch over there. If you have any issues with video or audio quality, click on the Help button. It's on the top upper right-hand corner of your screen and click on Compatibility Mode. The quality should improve, but you'll be on a slight delay, and you can turn it off at any point. For any unresolvable issues, just leave the presentation completely. Just X right out of it, log back in, and 9 times out of 10, that works. Cassie's also logged in the background. Hi, Cassie, and she will be monitoring the chat and can assist you. If you would like to submit questions for the authors, please type them in. We have an Ask the Question box below the screen. And if you see a question that's similar to one that you would like answered, you can upvote it and it'll float it to the top when we're ready to choose questions for the event. Next to it, you will see a green button at the bottom of the screen. If you click on this button, it'll take you to a landing page. We have links to each bookstore of each author, and I'm certain they all have signed books. I know we have plenty of signed Wimpy Kid books here, and also a link to donate to Bink, which we will be talking about a little later if you don't know about it. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special event. I did notice that Robin Price-Glasser, the illustrator of Landslide, Ian Patchett's picture book, wrote in the chat, "What a treasure of talent at one time." Robin, I could not agree more. This is just amazing. Leading the discussion is Jeff Kinney, the owner of An Unlikely Story, where I am right now, and the author of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. The first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book was published in 2007 and became an instant bestseller since the publication of the first book, and it has remained on the New York Times ever since. I'd also like to add, since we're here, that he is also the very best books. Joining Jeff this evening is Ann Patchett, co-owner of Parnassus Books in Nashville, Tennessee, as well as the beloved author of novels, short stories, books of nonfiction, and now picture books. Patchett has been the recipient of England's Orange Prize, the PEN Faulkner Award, a Guggenheim Fellowship, and numerous other awards. Her books have been both New York Times notable books and New York Times bestsellers. Also joining us is Blue Bunny Bookstore owner Peter Reynolds, who is well known for his best-selling books about nurturing and maintaining the creative spirit, including the 3 books in his Creatology, Dot, which inspired International Dot Day, Ish, and Eye Color. His award-winning work also includes illustrating the New York Times best-selling Judy Moody and Stink books, written by Megan McDonald. Peter has received an honorary doctorate of humane letters from Fitchburg State College and has won numerous awards, including the Distinguished Eagle Award by the Boy Scouts of America for distinguished service in his profession and to his community in 2017. So I am now going to welcome Janet Reynolds, who is also at the Blue Bunny, and she is going to tell us a little bit about how this event got started. So here we go. I'm going to unmute Janet and then welcome her to the screen. Hi, Janet.
Hi, everybody. Hello, welcome. So I'm so happy to be here tonight with my book selling colleagues and all of you book lovers and bookstore lovers. My name is Janet Reynolds, and I've been part of the Blue Bunny team since we opened way back in 2003. So now if there are any bookstore owners out there, we all know that owning an independent bookstore is a labor of love, not for the faint of heart. But it also is one with lots of silver linings. Indie bookstores are really mission-based businesses that offer safe harbor in each of our communities for so many kindred spirits. So when I think about all the awesome people I've met over the years at our store, and I know I speak for my colleagues as well, there's a certain type of soul to a bookstore lover. So whether it's the awesome author or illustrator who comes to do an event at our store, or it's the littlest storytime visitors that come, or if it's a teenager or a grandma or a teacher who's just looking for that perfect read, please know you have enriched all of us by visiting our stores. So we had this idea to pull Pete and Ann and Jeff together to share their unique perspectives on what it's like to be a bookstore owner, and what it's like to be an author who's also a bookstore owner, and what it's like to be an author who's also a bookstore owner during these unique times, during this pandemic. And so when we threw the idea out there, Anne and Jeff immediately said yes, which was really thrilling and gratifying for us. And we really had a good time planning this event. And then we thought, well, if we're all going to get these three wonderful people together, wouldn't it be cool if we could support BINC at the same time? So BINC is the Book Industry Charitable Fund, and it really does so much to help bookstores and booksellers. So I'm going to turn the stage over to Ann Patchett, who incidentally is BINC's inaugural ambassador. And she's going to start the evening with a little information about BINC, and then Jeff and Anne and Peter will just have a good chat. And I just want to do one quick note of thanks to our friends at Unlikely Story for taking the helm on all of the technology for tonight. So without further ado, here's Anne.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm not at Parnassus Books. Because we have a bunch of staff filling orders and the phone's ringing all the time, but I am in my house and it's nice and quiet, and I'm really happy to be here with all of you to tell you a minute about BINC. And BINC has been around for 25 years. It used to be part of Borders bookstore chain, and after Borders closed, some people from Borders took it independent and reached out to basically all brick and mortar bookstores and also comic shops. And it's about supplying these people with emergency grants. So we've never been as many emergency needs as there has been recently in this time. BINC has raised over $9 million, and they have met the needs of over 9,000 brick and mortar booksellers. And it can be for anything from food insecurity to paying the rent, to meeting medical bills. We also offer scholarships. It's one of the great things about the organization that I really love is how fleet of feet they are, and they really manage to serve the needs of and worthy booksellers so quickly. They're getting about 4 to 6 requests a week. So what I would like to suggest today is think about the little BINC button as a tip jar. Just, you know, it can be a couple of bucks. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but everything really, really adds up. And there are a lot of booksellers that are out of a job right now because so many bookstores are closed. So that's my pitch for BINC. They're a wonderful organization. I've loved working with them. I've been with them for several years, and Jeff's been a great supporter of BINC, and it's just great. So BINC up. Thank you.
All right. Hey, there I am.
Hey, there you are.
And
hey,
there
guys.
Peter is. All right, author, booksellers assemble. So we're talking about comic books, and I wanted to, you mentioned comic book stores.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you for your origin stories. Like, how did you go from being just authors to being authors/bookstore owners? Anne, we'll start with you.
Okay, so this was not my dream. I never thought about opening a bookstore. But I lived in Nashville, and Davis Kid closed, which had been our independent, but then it had been bought by Joseph Beth chain out of Ohio. So there were like 8 or 10 Joseph Beths. They were huge. They were 30,000 square feet, and we had a Borders. So the Borders and our Davis Kid, which had at one time been such a beloved independent, they closed in the same year. And everybody was trying to figure out who was going to open a bookstore, how was it going to happen? It wasn't getting done. And what was weird is both of those stores had been profitable. So there basically had been 60,000 square feet of profitable bookselling space in Nashville. They both went belly up. And I was introduced to Karen Hayes, who had been a sales rep with Random House. And she was interested in opening a bookstore. And over the course of one sandwich, we decided that we would go into partnership together, which was a great decision. And we opened 9 years ago, because time goes really fast. That's my story.
That's great. How about you, Peter? What was the spark?
The spark. Well, when you create your own book, it's kind of fun to go into a bookstore and look to see if they actually have your book. And so I had to look around my town for a bookstore, and we had a Book, which has, of course, since closed. But I noticed that there was not a independent bookstore in our town, and I went into a tailor shop in our downtown, and the fellow said, "I'm retiring."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well, what's going to go in your shop?" And he said, "I don't know. I don't care. I'm retiring." And I looked at this shop, and it was like hardwood floor and tin ceiling. And I'm like, this would make a great bookshop. It just kind of flashed in my head. So I went home and I took a piece of paper and I started drawing my fantasy of the most lovely bookstore. And of course, in my vision, I'm like, okay, it would be a bookstore, but it would have probably, puppets and games and things for kids to play with and to express themselves. And there would be blank books and art supplies. And so I sketched that all out and I showed it to my good friend, Dawn Haley, who is very much left-brained. I'm very right-brained. And she, within like 3 days, she had a spreadsheet. And she's like, this is how much the inventory would cost. This is the rent, this is utilities and taxes and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I think you could probably do this. And so within like 4 months, we opened up the Blue Bunny bookstore in our hometown of Dedham, Massachusetts. And here we are 17 years later. Yay.
That's awesome. And it's a great bookstore.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, you got to tell us.
Yeah. So
The whole story about your building is so great.
well, it's so sad because it doesn't come from a pure place at all. I live in a little town called Plainville, wherein all the communities surrounding us are, doing a little bit better in different ways. And we had this kind of really rotten building in the middle of our town, which used to be a general store. In fact, it was from 1856. So it was literally, it had been abandoned for 17 years by the time we bought it. But all I wanted to do, really and truly, was to make the building proud and to put the word Plainville on the side of it, just so that we could feel a little bit of civic pride, I guess you could say. And then, and we did that. And then I hadn't even thought about a bookstore or what to put in it at all. And the fact that we put a bookstore in had everything to do with trying to serve the widest swath of the community, literally from age 2 to age 98. And so it was sort of a pragmatic decision. I just wanted to do something that people could use. And what's pretty funny is that, or not so funny, is that years later, there was this national crime story that was covered by 48 Hours, and it started in Plainville. And so there are these ominous tones, and it starts off on the side of our building. It says Plainville, Massachusetts. I was like, no, that's the opposite of what I was looking for. But something that I've realized is that when I started off as an author, which wasn't that long ago, I've been an author for about 12 or 13 years, is that I really took bookstores for granted. I just figured they were there, they existed, and that, I didn't think about their finances or that it might be hard to keep the doors open. I was just thinking about my needs as an author, which is, I'm embarrassed to admit that now. But I was curious, Peter, has owning a bookstore made you see other bookstores differently?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And owning a bookstore it's a noble profession, and nobody out there is getting rich. And that's why, one of my messages to people is like, when you think of like, oh, I want to buy a book, I know what your first temptation is, right? When I see people tweet, they're like, oh, I love that book. I'm going to, and I'm not even going to say the name. It's like Voldemort. And I don't blame people, because this Voldemort company has done such a good job at saying that's what you do when you want something.
Yeah.
I want to double click on Voldemort. Some industries might be able to survive that, but independent bookstores are an endangered species. And, Anne and Jeff and I, we're lucky enough that we have books, and we have we have enough, some following to get people to our bookstore, but it still is not, it's barely enough, which is, it's amazing to me that it's this hard. Like, it's hard work to run a bookstore, and every single day it's hard work. And my staff works really, really hard. They pay attention. What are the new books? What are the new trends? What are people asking for? And it's not a machine. It's not an algorithm that makes this successful. It's human beings who love not only books, but love independent voices. And I think that's really what we are champions of, right? As independent bookstores, we're champions of independent voices, and that all of these independent voices can survive on the shelves together peacefully, right? And that's what we need as a society. We need to be able to say, yeah, you have a point of view, I have a point of view, and we can exist together on a bookshelf. And that takes tending every single day, and that's what you're paying that little extra for, if you consider it as extra.
Yeah.
And so I just encourage everyone who's listening to really think about that, and help support your independent bookstore, because that staff is working really, really hard at finding out, who are the new voices. And right now we're in a very, very special moment in history that there's so many new voices coming out, and we need to encourage them, and they will survive because they can sell books, right? If they don't sell books, they'll just, it'll be much quieter voice. So we have to support those voices. So those new books, get out there, support them, buy them, and buy them from an independent bookstore, so that you can support the people that support the independent voices.
Well said. And maybe I'm being a little bit naive, but I feel like as we sort of look into the future, I feel like we're planning the next 100 years for this bookstore. I don't think about us being an endangered species, because I think I can't see anybody really replicating the browsing experience online, and I can't really see anybody replicating the community experience online. So I just wanted to know how you felt about when you think about your own bookstore and what its future might be. And here you do have some, the big A bookstore creating a brick and mortar store right near you. So there's that. But I just wanted to know how you felt about the longevity, and do you think that people will always be seeking out this experience that you offer?
I really do. And the thing is, not everyone, right? Like, there are lots of people in this country who live in tiny towns where there isn't a Books A Million for 100 miles. And maybe they are getting their books through the big A. But there are also a lot of people who want the experience that we offer, which is not only the new voices and the authors, but the fact that we remember them. We have this staff of people who are there to greet everybody who comes in the store. Oh, I know just the book that you're going to want because I remember what you read the last time. We have dogs in our store. We have the story time. We have author events. It is a community center. And I feel like I've been banging on this drum for 9 years, and now I see it working more than ever now that we're closed. And I realize how great our customers are, because they aren't coming in our store and they're ordering from us, and we're doing curbside pickup, but they really understand our choice to keep our staff safe and to keep them safe. And this is the moment, like, no one's watching, and they could very easily order from that other place, and they're not. They are still coming to us and paying full price, and having us put the books in the back of their car, or having us mail the books down the street. Or I walk my dog every morning and my neighbors say, can you get me a copy of the Mary Trump book? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going over there now. I'll bring it over and stick it in your mailbox. That people really are paying attention when we're down, and it gives me an enormous amount of faith and hope. Again, I think that the days of the 30,000 square foot bookstore are probably over, but the days of curation and a thoughtful experience for a certain kind of person, we're good.
Yeah. And Peter, a question for you is, can you see Anne right now?
Can I? Yes, I can.
Okay, you can, because I can't see her on my screen, but as long as you can, I think
I
that's
can see
that's
all
good.
three. Yes, three of us.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. She can make faces at me. I'll never know. So all three of us in Better Times are touring authors. Can you give me a few shout outs, some of the best independent bookstores you visited in the country?
Wow.
And we can't name each other's because that's not fair.
Yeah. Well, I was on a book tour just before the COVID storm blew in. I have a new book called Be You, and Scholastic sent me on this whirlwind tour, and it was like any other multi-city tour. I went down to Miami and I crisscrossed across the country, and as I was finishing my tour, I was supposed to end in Spokane, Washington, and that's kind of where the epicenter was happening. And the world was tipping upside down at that point. But I can't, I'd have to look at the list. Every bookstore I go to, I love. I fall in love with, and to single one out, I think I'd be in trouble because they'd be like, "How about me?" But I love them all.
And you actually did an article about this, right?
Yeah, let me just kind of reel off some of my favorites, and then you're going to be like, wait, let me in there.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm so excited about this Sunday, Parnassus is going to start a partnership with one of my favorite stores, Book Passage in Corte Madera, where we're going to host author events together, right? Like, why aren't we all doing this? It would be such a great idea. So I'm going to interview Louise Erdrich, and it's going to show up on both of our websites. I love Book Passage. I love Louise Erdrich's bookstore, another great author bookstore owner, Birch Bark Books in Minneapolis. And my favorite bookstore in the country is probably McLean and Eakin in Michigan. I love that store. The Mississippi stores, of course, Square Books and Lemuria, Turn Row. Another store, I love the Brooklyn stores so much. Emma Straub is a terrific author bookstore owner, and the women who own Greenlight Books in Brooklyn, they have been doing amazing work. It's really everywhere, and it's this funny combination of like, okay, we're independent, but boy, are we just all a web. Now, see, don't you remember? And Alabama Booksmith in Birmingham, the strangest. Have either of you guys been to Alabama Booksmith? Jake? It's in a double-wide trailer in Birmingham, Alabama. And his whole thing is he only sells hardback books and he ships. Like half of the store is shipping. If you ever really want to learn from a master about how to get a book out to the public, go and see Jake at Alabama Booksmith.
I love it.
I'm putting that on my list.
I'm going to ask you to do a little bit more name dropping here, this time with authors. So we've all three of us have stores where we've done events, and we're always, within myself, Kim, Deb, we're always talking about who's in our top 5 or who's in our top 3 in terms of the different events that we've had. And I will say both of you have cracked the list at times, for sure. But I want to know give me an event that sometimes you have an event in your store and there's like a spark of magic and you can tell when you walk in. I have felt that for both of your events. I was wondering, give me an author who kind of created that magic with their audience at your store. Peter.
Well, here's a Massachusetts author, Jeff Kinney, who actually, it was kind of fun, Jeff. I remember back to we hosted one of your first events.
Yeah.
Which was wonderful. And gosh, we've had so many amazing people walk through these doors. Of course, some of my collaborators, Megan McDonald's Judy Moody series, Susan Verde, who does the I Am Human, I Am Yoga series, gosh, I'm
we had Megan here, and we actually built these trivia cabinets for a whole different reason. And so we have like a professional kind of trivia setup, almost like Jeopardy. And she had a book called, it was something about a quiz. It was like her character was on a quiz show, basically.
Yeah.
And so we brought out the trivia cabinets. I had no idea that Megan's aspiration has always been to be on Jeopardy. So all of a sudden there was this Jeopardy set, and she was practically in tears competing against these children, but it was really funny. But that was really special. And what about you? Like, give me a good top 3 legendary events at Parnassus.
You know what? It may be more than 3. And as soon as we stop talking about this, I'm gonna just freak out and remember everybody. We had Father Greg Boyle do an event, brought 2 young men from Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles. His book, Tattooed on the Heart, Barking at the Choir. Nobody puts on a more electric program than Greg Boyle. Zadie Smith, who has a new book out this week, was reviewed in the Times. I interviewed Zadie at a college in Nashville, and there were people from 4 states who were bussed in, people who had driven for 8 or 10 hours to come into that event. And it was worth every second of that drive, people standing in line and crying to meet her. And what she gave to that audience was unbelievable. Harlan Coben, the easiest person in the world I have ever interviewed. Michael Connolly was interviewed by his brother, who's a tech genius who happens to live in Nashville. Unbelievable event. And of course, the greatest moment of my life was the day that Robin Price Glasser walked in the door to do an event for the last Fancy Nancy, and our eyes met across a crowded room, and we fell in love, and we've been together ever since.
That's really cool. That's really cool. For us, I think we had Henry Winkler one night, which was really, really amazing. We had a young athlete named Malcolm Mitchell who went to college not being sort of semi-literate. And he joined a book club, which was actually mostly 50 and 60-year-old women. And he joined this book club to really help him improve his. Yeah. And boy, there was some electricity in that room for that event. And that's been our biggest loss here is missing those events. And I'm sure.
Are either of you doing virtual events? Have you had any luck with that?
Yep. We've done probably about 7 or 8 that I've hosted, and then probably about 7 or 8 or more that others have hosted. And so we had Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton right after you.
I interviewed them.
Yeah, I know. We had them the next day. So
it was hard.
Yeah, that was cool. Like you had to fill an hour about grandma's gardens. That's a challenge. But that was great, and we've had Jean Yang and a number of other authors as well. So, and Peter, has the Blue Bunny done any virtual events yet?
We did. We do an annual event called Smack Dab in the Middle.
Yeah.
Which celebrates middle grade authors, and it's been growing over the years. And of course, this year we had to switch to virtual, and it turned out it was actually kind of fun because we had all the people that enjoyed being there in person, but then we were able to go national and also international. And so our authors who, a lot of them had books that had just come out, in the spring, and there were no events. So they were very appreciative that we did that.
Yeah.
And, that's part of our job, right? Is to get really good new stuff on radar with people. And so smack dab in the middle. If you go to the Blue Bunny website, you can sign up to our newsletter, and we do it every year. And we're going to probably be doing kind of expanding that middle grade genre has been successful for us as a online as a conference, and we're thinking maybe going bigger, maybe younger and older. So definitely, thank you, technology, in this case, for helping us connect out to our audience.
Yeah, I read a book called The Next 100 Years, and it talked about how the biggest innovations always come at wartime. And you can definitely see how we're accelerating here. Like, these are things that we might not have done 4 months ago, 5 months ago, and now we're getting good at it, which is great because we were able to get authors who, like, for example, Kristen Bell, and then and others who might not have come to our store. John Grisham, I'm not sure if he would have made his way up here, but we were able to do that. And of course, they're an author with a book, and they need to find an audience, and we're getting good at this and building our audience. And I know there's probably about 3,000 people watching this right now. So it's good that we're getting good at it now, so that we have more flexibility in the future. And I read the article, I think it was in the New York Times, about Parnassus closing and then sort of getting ready to reopen. What's the state that you're in right now?
We are closed. We are shipping. We are doing curbside pickup. We're doing well at all of those things. We've put a lot of innovation into it, but we don't have any plans to open.
Okay.
Yeah. And let me ask you guys a question. So hypothetically, a year from now, there's a vaccine and we're all safe again. Are you going to go back and do the same kind of big tours that you did before? Because I'm really, really thinking about this myself in my own life.
Yeah. What about you, Peter?
Wow. Yeah. My Asia tour was canceled, and then they said we'll postpone it to October, and of course October sounds too soon, and even next year maybe sounds too soon. But it's frustrating because I'd love to get out there. I really do love. I love getting out there and visiting schools and libraries, and and international travel is fun too. Meeting, seeing that our stories are universal. So it's frustrating. It is, and it is scary. So fingers crossed that we can figure this thing out and that science can prevail and help us get to a safer time. At the Blue Bunny bookstore, we have a cafe. So technically, because we have a cafe, we could have been open the whole time, right? Because if you serve food, it was essential service, and so we could have been, but we decided to stay shut for the safety of our employees, and also just to not have tempt people to come out of their homes. And we're in severe lockdown here in Massachusetts. And then after about almost 3 months, we decided let's slowly reopen the cafe. So when people would come into our cafe, they would see books on the shelves. They're like, "Can I buy the book?" We're like,
Sure.
"Okay, sure, you can buy a book." And so de facto, the bookstore started to reopen, and we are open the coffee shop is open from 7 o'clock in the morning until 2. At 2 o'clock, we've been doing appointment shopping. So people have been coming in and doing their, safe appointment shopping. As time goes on, we're thinking if there are people who are comfortable following protocol with masks and sanitizer, they're coming in to buy their coffee and they grab a book. Should we reopen fully? So we're actually pretty close. Depending on, again, it depends on how the country goes. If everybody was Massachusetts, I think we'd be in a better place. Massachusetts is doing very well. We're coming in on a landing, but my son doesn't agree with me. Yeah, but I'm optimistic that we're going to. Massachusetts has got this under control, so we're very tentatively. I mean, as we expand, we're going to follow all protocols. But it's certainly, it's nerve-wracking because, you don't want to put anyone in harm's way. And yet we want to keep providing, and Anne, I think you were saying that it's community, right? It's a community center that you created. And yes, we can do curbside and, do online shopping, but that essential component of bringing human beings together, it's so critical. And that's why, I'm really hoping that we can get to this safer place so that people can actually hang out in a bookstore. And one of my favorite scenes is, we have couches and leather chairs, and you see mom and dad and grandpa and, grandchild curled up on the couch reading together. And it's like that's what it's all about. We could certainly put a book in a bag and send it out the door, but seeing them actually reading together is pure magic. And that's kind of why we do what we do.
Yeah. And right now, our status is that we're closed to customers, but we're about to open up for appointment shopping. We're going to see if we're comfortable with that. We're going to take our booksellers' cues and make sure that they feel comfortable. If they're not comfortable, if we get into mask disputes, we won't open. So we're hoping that everybody follows the rules and that we can get 70% of the way there. You asked about touring. I think that if we get into some sort of world where people have a green bracelet because that means they were tested and cleared or something like that, or vaccinated, I would definitely do it again once the world gets to that state. Actually, in 2 weeks from now, I'm doing a tour, an in-person tour. I have a book coming out, and I'm going to drive a van myself from New York to Vermont. Make a bunch of stops along the way. I have a 92-inch grabber tool, so the kids it'll be curbside pickup. Kid and their parent will pull up, and then I'll switch a book over. We'll see how it goes. But I think it feels to me 100% safe, and obviously safety is what's most important. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I have been thinking about, though, is also the planet and travel, and whether or not it's a good idea for me to just get on a plane day after day after day.
Yeah.
It's something I'm really wrestling with, because as we are able to make connections, and I know it's not the same, but to do virtual events, and to think that the thing that certainly is freaking me out the most is climate change, and that I am part of the problem because I keep getting on a plane every single week and going places, if that's something that I want to change in my own life going forward. So that's kind of what I'm asking. And I'm really asking because I can't figure it out myself.
Yeah. But that's cool. And I mean, this situation has kind of forced us to try new things. And like for me personally, like I started doing book readings, and I realized, I mean, I had not done a lot of live streaming to my readers, and the response was amazing, amazing. And I was thinking, like, what I was able to do just casually on Facebook and Instagram was I was reaching, maybe 10 times as many people as I was jumping on a plane, finding the hotel, going to the bookstore, doing the library event, and I'm kind of with you that I'm reassessing what the impact. Like, we only have so many hours in a day, and our plates are full. If we can hop online and have a chat with 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people, that's pretty good use of our energy, and also keeps our footprint smaller. So there's definitely silver linings to this.
Yeah. So we're going to remind our viewing audience here, we're going to take questions in a moment, but let's talk about Bink before we do. Anne, could you tell us how did you get involved with Bink?
Oh, it's a really funny story. Our events manager, Nikki Kaufman, came up to me one day, and our favorite sales rep was Kate McEwen, she's not our sales rep from Harper anymore. She stopped traveling, but we just, everybody loved Kate McEwen. And Nikki came up to me after a rep breakfast one day, and she said, Kate's going to ask you a favor, and she's really nervous about it, so just say yes. I said, oh, I love Kate. Of course, I'll say yes to anything. And she came up to me, and she was really nervous, and she said, would you be the ambassador for the Booksellers Charitable Foundation? And I was like, well, sure, yes. I said I'd say yes. I had no idea what I was saying yes to. And it kind of ebbs and flows. There are times that I am hugely involved, but my main purpose is to shake down people and large publishing industries for money. Because these people from Bink can call and call to try to get an appointment with the head of Random House. And I can pick up the phone and I'm like, listen, I'm like the mafia, you know, I'm like, listen, don't make me come to your house. All right. Just give me the money and everything's going to be cool. And that's what I do. And people give me money.
That's great. And you said to me in a very threatening tone, I'm going to get you involved in Bink. And you did. And so we had an event last year, which we were going to repeat this year, which was, I think, one of our favorite events, which was that we did a Jeopardy style competition, which was authors versus New England booksellers. So it was, we had a number of New England bookstores represented there, and we all, and the authors got knocked out really quickly. I'm embarrassed to say.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah, but it was cool because we got together in the spirit of bookselling, and we know, I know that there have been booksellers at my own store who have benefited from Bink, and I'm sure Anne and Peter that's been the same case with you. So what I really like about this organization is that the money that we raise tonight is going straight into the hands of booksellers in need. So I hope anybody who has the means might click on that link and find a way to donate. So I am going to ask you one fun question before we get onto our audience questions. If the world opens up again, if it opened up tomorrow, what's the thing that you would do, Peter?
Wow. What would I do? I would have a big block party. I would tell the town, I'd ask our town select board if we could close off the street and just have a big party, a community party, and I would sponsor that and bring authors and illustrators and just have a big celebration.
That's awesome. I'll come to that if you have it. Awesome. How about you, Anne? What's the thing, big or small?
Exactly the same thing. I would throw open the doors to the bookstore. I'd make a lot of cookies and hors d'oeuvres. I'd crank up the music. I'd get all the dogs a new collar and just invite everybody back in to be a part of the bookstore community. One of the things I've discovered in this time, I don't want to go anywhere. I've discovered I'm really happily married, right? I love my husband. I love our house. I love our dog. If this is it, I am the luckiest person in the world.
Yeah, I've got 2 kids, and my older son is 17, and he's going into his senior year. And, around about March, I was saying, I just wish I could slow down the clock. And this, and as awful as this has been for so many people who have been touched by it, for us and our family, it's just slowed down the clock. And, and I think it's a good moment for families and for couples to really appreciate what we have. So I think what we'll do now is we are going to take, Kim, the very best of your questions. How about if you shout them out to us and we'll do our best to answer.
Okay, this question is from Kristen. That a lot of books are being pushed to a later release date because of the pandemic, including yours, Jeff. What books are you looking forward to their release?
Oh, that's a good question.
There are some books I am so excited about. I don't know about you guys, but my reading has been really strange. There's so many things that I pick up and I think this is good. I'm not interested, and I put it down. It's been all over the place, but when I love something, I really love something. So the books that I am so excited about, in early August, there is a book by Alice Randall called Black Bottom Saints that's coming out that is based on Butler's Lives of the Saints, and they are little vignettes about real people in Detroit, Black people who should have been saints. It's not like anything I've ever read before. It's an incredible book. In September, Jesse, who wrote Homegoing, has a new novel out called Transcendent Kingdom that is going to just level the world. It is so brilliant. I was completely engaged. I'm so excited about this novel. And a couple of nights ago, Well, I mean, I'll take this back. Maybe 2 weeks ago, I did an event for Greenlight in Brooklyn. There were 10 authors. Everybody was reading 2 pages. And Lev Grossman read the first 2 pages of his new middle grade novel, which was called The Silver Arrow. I don't know Lev Grossman, but you know, we're all on an email chain, and I wrote to him and I said, I have got to read this book. And it caught my heart like nobody's business. So those are 3 books I'm so excited about in the fall.
Cool. How about you, Peter?
Well, this I don't
yeah.
know, Act, right? Class Act, right? By Jerry Craft, and I actually haven't read it yet. But Margie, see, this is what's great about working in a bookstore. That Margie Leonard, who has been with us for over 10 years. Margie, yeah, over 10 years. She's over there, and she's like, Pete, you will love this one. So this is on my list. So Class Act, and then of course I'm collaborating with Susan Verde, who she just has been doing some amazing stuff. I Am Yoga and I Am Peace and I Am Human, and her books really are speaking to what we're going through right now. And this one's coming out actually in the fall. This is not the final cover. This is a sketch that I did, but this is I Am One, a book of connection, and that one I'm really excited about because it really speaks to the fact that it's one big world, and we're going we're kind of going in 2 separate directions, and really the way we're going to find peace is realizing that we're all the same, and we have to be one. And so I'm biased because I illustrated that book, but Susan really did a lovely job in that book. And I think it's, like right now, the books that are kind of help us heal and inspire us are much needed. So anyway, that's on my list to read.
Yeah, well, you guys, you both went high and high-minded, and I'm going to go really low. I'm going to say the book I'm looking forward to coming out is mine, because yes, we delayed it, but we it's funny. It's called Raleigh Jefferson's Awesome Friendly Adventure, but I came up with it on like December 27th and turned in a fully illustrated finished book like February 27th.
Oh my God.
And it was like such a high wire act and so risky. And we were so happy that we got it done. And then we shipped it out on time and everything like that. And then COVID happened and we had to pull it. And we were banking on, we had to say, when might things be better when might some independent bookstores be open? And we thought August 4th, that was our best guess. So I'm not sure if we completely nailed it, but it didn't feel right to put out a book in the middle of the height of a pandemic. So, and I'm sure lots of other people have written nice books too.
Yeah. So tell us again, Jeff, what's the title?
It's called Raleigh Jefferson's Awesome Friendly Adventure. And so we could all use a little more awesome friendly in our lives too.
That's nice.
Kim,
Yeah.
So you're going to have to scrub my self-plug from the archive edition here.
No.
Absolutely not.
Why don't you serve up another question for us?
Okay. So this is from my pal, Kate Q Day, and Barbara too. So she says, I've been lucky enough to shop in all 3 stores, and they're each so unique. How does your store represent your personality?
Well, I think Peter's bookstore is Peter in a way. I can feel Peter's presence in his bookstore.
Well, the fact that we served coffee and tea, I mean, to me, it's a party. It's fun. It's, I want people to come and kind of experience what I experience. Like when I'm creating stuff, like some people need to be in a barn in Vermont alone. I like to be among people. So I often have written my stuff in cafes and restaurants and at bars and where it's noisy and there's a lot of buzz. And I like that buzz is important to me. And so I wanted to create a little community center with some buzz. And the coffee shop across the street from us, they lost their lease. And so they literally got kicked to the curbside. So I said to Steve, the owner, I said, can you just roll your stuff over to our place? And he rolled it through the door, and my staff were looking at me like, what are you thinking? We're going to lose our, picture book section. But we kind of just smooshed everything together, and we brought the coffee shop in, and it worked out. It worked out great. So it's very organic. That's how when you open up the bookstore, you have something in mind, and then things change, and that's welcome.
And how is Parnassus represent your personality?
It's interesting. Parnassus really represents Karen's personality, my partner. She really made the aesthetic decisions, and I, by virtue of the fact that I'm a writer, I'm not much of a collaborator, and especially in aesthetics, I kind of believe that the worst thing that can happen is to compromise aesthetically. So we had different visions, and we went with hers. And the store is beautiful, but when I walk into it, I think this is Karen's aesthetic, and it's fantastic. The dogs are my aesthetic.
And I don't know what the answer to that question is for me, but I do know that sometimes when we're hosting author events, Kim will be on roller skates, passing the microphone around, and I like that. That puts a smile on my face.
And you know what I'll say about your store? You've got the best sense of lighting of any author I've ever met. You just have the light in your store is tremendous.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the spot where he always takes selfies, and I have the computer on a little cart, and I rolled it around with my chair into that exact spot where he takes his photos.
I just take selfies all day long.
No fool, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, this
Jeff,
question. Oh,
Jeff,
go ahead. Sorry, Peter.
I'm going to ask Jeff, what's the population of Plainville?
8,000 or 9,000, so not so much.
So I think the funniest question I got from Jeff is the last store I worked at was Wellesley Books. And he says, so Kim, you're coming from, big town, college town, 100,000 people to Plainville with like 8,000 people. What are you going to do when nobody's in the store? And we laugh about that now because the first weekend we had thousands of people in.
Yeah, have three.
But my hat's off to you, Jeff, because this is your hometown, and you have a very small population. But you really you invested in your town, and you said a bookstore is important, and the research has shown that when bookstores open, good things happen, and it does change a community, and you're helping your hometown evolve and grow, and so thank you to investing in your hometown.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
Peter, I tip my hat to you. You're a big inspiration because you've saved your theater and really the downtown of Dedham, and I know you have bigger plans. And in fact, we were supposed to get together to talk about what your vision was and what mine is, for my town. So definitely
We will do that soon.
Yeah. All right, Kim, what do you got? I think we have about 7 more minutes.
Okay, so this is the top question here with 5 votes from Keisha. She says, hello, you all see a lot of books in your occupations. Is there a certain publisher and or publishing process, self-publishing, traditional publishing, small press, etc., you would suggest for someone attempting to publish a children's picture book nowadays?
Oh boy.
Man, I'm not answering that one. That's you guys. Children, I have no understanding of how children's publishing works. I'll take the adult questions, but go.
Yeah. Well, here's a little tip that the people who buy children's books are adults. They're the ones with your credit cards. So you're writing to kids, which is absolutely important, but you also have to remember that you're writing to adults too. And if you can, this is speaking a little bit more to the content, but if that content can speak to adults as well, that will give you just a little bit more of a shot at getting your book out there. But in terms of publishing, I would say, self-publishing, which many years ago when I started doing this, it was called Vanity Press. and you might had to buy 500 copies of your book, and they would be in your basement, and you try to give them away. Now with self-publishing, you can test out an idea, and this really is important to say that there are tools out there that are allowing new voices to be heard without having to beg an agent and an editor to look at your stuff. Because I'll tell you, though, the editors, I have some lovely friends who are editors, and they have mountains of stuff to sift through, and for them to find the gold is it's possible. But if you really believe in that story that you want to tell, if you're like, the world needs this story, the world needs this message, put it out there. And because hopefully you don't have one, you have 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe you have 60 messages to share with the world. So on those first few, believe in yourself, publish, just get it out there, self-publish, because a publisher can always republish your self-published book. But just the most important thing is to get your story out there. Find your audience, even if it's 100 people, it could be 1,000 teachers, it could be 3,000 art teachers. Think about what your subject is and say, every science teacher in the world is going to love this book, and it might be the importance of science, and you will find your audience and get to know them, love them, take care of them, and they will take care of you.
Yeah, great answer. I don't know what the answer to that is either. Or Peter does. I don't.
I have ideas,
but I did everything the wrong way, and it ended up working out for me. But first of all, I spent 9 years working on my book. The first draft was 1,300 pages long, and then everybody says now go to you have to find an agent. Don't even try with the publisher. I walked around with a sample packet at Comic-Con with a 20-page sample packet. Found a guy who was, an editor at a booth and said, "What do you think of this?" And he said, "This is the reason we came here, to find this kind of work." So it's like that doesn't happen very often. I lucked out, but I will say that I was prepared for the moment. Like I had sort of mastered this one very small thing that I do. I wasn't feeling my way through it. I knew how to do that thing. And that's one of the reasons I really love the book Outliers, The Story of Success by Malcolm Gladwell, because he says, to become an expert at anything, you need about 10 years. And I really believe that. I wasn't ready to see anybody before 8 or 9 years. So I feel lucky for that. All right, Kim, do we have a grand finale question that's just going to blow us all away?
Okay, so it's not a question, but it's a thank you from Katrina, and it's too good not to read. Because it is kind of for all three of you. Said, whenever I go to the cash register at an independent bookstore, nothing matches that giddiness. Being surrounded by people who love books, seeing new titles I'd never heard of lining the shelves, and surprising me, there was a tiny Shirley Jackson version I had never seen before at an Unlikely Story that I snatched up shortly before COVID. The smell of a bookstore, Voldemort can't touch that.
That's great. And I wanted to finish by talking about Bink again. Before everybody logs off, there's a button at the bottom of your screen. I did want to mention that during the pandemic, the book and comic communities came together so far and raised $2.7 million in 12 weeks, which is just amazing. And so Bink was able to help over 1,600 stores, 500 booksellers with this emergency financial assistance. And so far, these donors have helped keep families from losing their homes and provided necessary funds for stores to pivot and figure out how to do business in a new way. So please do consider donating. I'm sure the three of us will again. And thank you, everyone. Thanks so much, Anne. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you, Janet, and everybody at the Blue Bunny for coming up with this idea. Thanks, Kim, for running this event. So it's really fantastic.
A little shout out to bookshop.org.
There you go, yeah.
Which is the independent bookstores answer to Amazon. Voldemort.
Good catch.
If you buy books, if you're like, oh, I'm going to buy a book on, I need a book, you can go to bookshop.org, and a lot of independent bookstores have signed up, and they have a little storefront. If you buy through them, 30% of the money goes to the independent bookstore, And there's a general fund too. And Andy Hunter and the gang at bookshop.org have just done really, truly a miraculous job at creating this alternative that is helping independent bookstores. So big shout out to bookshop.org. And I think earlier on I said that bookshops were an endangered species. They're not. They're a very delicate species that need love and attention. And we will be here for as long as you guys love us and take care of us, and not just our 3 bookstores, but whoever, whatever bookstore is in your neighborhood, go in there, support them, love them, give them a hug. They're doing miracles every day, and we're going to keep going, and we're going to help support independent ideas as well, which is the most important thing.
Great. Anne, do you want to sign us off?
Every day I walk into the store and I look at the people who work there and I think, why aren't you running Google? They're so smart. They are so too good for us. And the reason that they're there is because they love books. And people like us, publishing industries, writers who are successful, we're making money because people who are smart and love books want to work in bookstores and sell books. And so it really is incumbent upon us, the shoppers, the writers, the publishers, the readers, to support the people who work in the bookstores who are not earning what they could be earning doing almost anything else, but support them in their love for books.
Right. And shout out to Deb Sundin and all the talented booksellers at An Unlikely Story. We love you all, and we can't wait to see you open our doors. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks to all the booksellers and authors out there who tuned in to this, and we hope to see you down the line.
Bye. Thank you.
Reynolds.
Bye.
Bye.